that up. All right. And then we have the intro.
And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Well, hello and welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, or X as they call it now, Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, and subscribe wherever you get your audio. As we are doing some division previews, of course, as the regular season gets up, and I think there's a lot of really interesting stories, and as we focus on the Flames and the Canucks mostly on our podcast, and the Pacific Division has some fascinating stories. Other divisions have some fascinating stories as well. And that includes the Metropolitan Division. And yet for the Metropolitan Division, I had to bring someone on that was interesting. And we bring on from Alaska. Where exactly in Alaska, Jeremiah Maxwell?
Oh, I live in Anchorage. Yeah, I live in Anchorage, Kevin. So that's the biggest city in Alaska, about 350,000 people. So pretty large metro area. I live kind of in a little bit more of a rural area, but I live in the city. So, so southwest Anchorage or whatever, closer to the ocean. So, yeah. Or inlet. Yeah, it's great. Living in the Pacific Northwest, it cuts different, man. It's a beautiful place, God's country, or whatever,
there is. Southwest Canada, the Pacific Ocean is absolutely beautiful here. Fresh air, all of that is just, it's just something to breathe in. And I imagine it's the same in Alaska. I'd love to go sometime.
Yeah. I think you would find that you recognize a lot of it because it looks very similar. I'd say probably the temperatures are a little bit colder. Right now it's about 42 Fahrenheit. So whatever that is in Celsius, since you, like the rest of the world, uses the metric system, but Americans, we got to be different. So, it's like that Saturday Night Live skit with the Nick, Nate Bargatze. I don't know if you know him. He's like a clean comedian, but he's like, we're going to have freedom and we're going to have our own system of measurements and all this stuff. I was like, what? That makes no sense.
That's a chilly, by the way, that's a +5 in Canada, and it's currently plus 17 here. So that would be
60s, probably.
Yeah, 62 in the United States. Yeah.
Yeah, which is nice. 60s is perfect. That's about how warm it gets in the summer here. So now it just depends. Now, like in Fairbanks, the middle part of the state, just to give you a little geographical, gets very hot. Gets a lot hotter. They're not close to the ocean though. So I wore. Speaking of which, since we're doing Metro, I was gonna wear this. This is the Scott Gomez 2000 Stanley Cup jersey.
Nice.
Scotty Gomez is an Anchorage, Alaska guy. We have a few Anchorage, Alaskites in the NHL. Nate Thompson.
Yes, we do.
Jeremy Swayman, an unpaid big one. That's Atlantic Division, though. So let's get to it, man. Let's talk about Metro.
Let's do it. let's do it. By the way, Scott Gomez, GM of the Surrey Eagles of the PCHL.
Yes. He made, I don't know, 40 million in his career, and he's coaching. I love it, man. Scotty is a really good person, man.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Let's save the jersey that you're wearing for later, and let's go kind of, I think, from what the suspected bottom is to the top. And I think it's hard not to talk about the Metro, and it's hard not to talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets with a bit of a heavy heart, of course, with the passing of Johnny and, of course, his brother Matthew. I have this theory about the Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm going to toss at you and then see what you think. I think they're going to get off to a much better start than a lot of people think. And I think that they will fade in the second half of the season. I don't see the Columbus Blue Jackets as a playoff team, but this is a team that I think will find a way to unite through some very trying circumstances. And this is a team that's been through, this is their second tragedy in about 3 years. Of course, you had the Elvis Merzlikins situation a couple of years ago. You got a guy that I think is a really good coach in Dean Evason that I think didn't get a fair deal in Minnesota. There's a lot of young talent there that I think they'll get off to a really good start, but they're not necessarily. I don't see them as a playoff team, unfortunately. Still in that rebuilding phase.
So you'll see over my right shoulder, I will have the whole year on my little Deadpool here, the Johnny Gaudreau Columbus Blue Jackets jersey. That is a jersey I bought for myself because I was such a Johnny Gaudreau fan. Absolutely terrible tragedy. I can't think of anything close to like even this happening in the hockey world other than like the Humboldt Broncos. That was a terrible thing. But like at the NHL level, you don't see stuff like this very often. I don't know. These guys, they live in pretty good lives and stuff, but just an absolute awful tragedy. I don't disagree with you that Columbus could start out high. I will say 100% Dean Evason was an assistant coach with the Washington Capitals, a team I grew up rooting for a very long time under Bruce Boudreau. Bill Guerin, I recently saw him talk about how much he loves Dean Evason. I don't think he wanted to make that move there in Minnesota. I 100% agree with you. That was the absolute right hiring. They do have a very good group of young talent. Let's see what Fantilli is in his second year. Hopefully not. I think he had some injuries and stuff, so that hopefully that helps him avoid the sophomore slump. They don't have a real good book on him. Kent Johnson's a guy. I know you'll hear Frank Saravelli just like cry, like, what are they doing with this kid? They keep sending him down. I think they finally are starting to get things corrected there at an organizational level that they needed to get done. I have met a ton of great Blue Jackets fans. They have a great fan base. Everything I've heard, that's an awesome place to see an arena. They sell a lot of tickets there. They deserve to see a winner. I think they're going to be more competitive. They were a 27-win team last year. I think I could see them winning 40. And that could put them on the outside looking in or right there, man. You could be right. They could be a 500 team. But it's going to come down to goaltending but they have those Marchenko, some of those guys, like they've got some skill on that team. Gonna be hurting without Gaudreau's presence there. It's gonna be tough, man. I think they're probably on the outside looking in, like you said. But stranger things have happened. I think every year we have 5 or 6 new teams that weren't in the playoffs last year. So you just got to see someone's going to eventually fall off. This is an interesting one when we're talking about this division, right? Because we've got a lot of long in the tooth teams, like really everybody except for the New Jersey Devils and the Philadelphia Flyers are pretty long in the tooth. Well, in Columbus. So
yeah. But I feel like Columbus is in a little bit of a different situation than New Jersey for sure, because I think New Jersey has some expectations. And I think the Philadelphia Flyers, you look at them. This is an intriguing team they fought for a playoff spot when no one thought that they would. They've got some guys on this team. They've got some interesting goaltending situation. And they have a guy that I think a lot of people are talking about in the Calder Trophy. I think the recent people will be watching the Philadelphia Flyers this year is around Matvei Michkov.
Yeah.
And you know what? I am one of those guys that thinks that John Tortorella gets a bit of a bum rap as being a coach, but I think he is a better coach than a lot of people give him credit for. And he comes across very snarly towards the media. But you also saw the side this week with him bringing in, speaking of Johnny, Guy Gaudreau in for a Flyers practice. He's got a human touch to him, and I think he's more connected to this game than a lot of people give him credit for.
Well, you will not hear me argue that at all, Kevin. I'm a huge John Tortorella supporter. I know he was there in Vancouver. I don't know if you had a chance. Anybody that knows this guy outside of hockey says he's a great guy. His players love playing for him. I've never heard a player say a bad word about him. Let's just talk about the elephant in the room with the Philadelphia Flyers. They 100% would have made the playoffs last year. 100% if the Carter Hart didn't have the Canadian junior thing. Like they lost a world-class goalie, maybe the best goalie Canada has in its stable, honestly, with the thing coming up. And he's not going to be playing in the NHL. He might not be a free man. So brutal, man. Like that was probably one of the most unspoken things that happened last year. And they were incredible. They were they went from being a speed bump to being an absolute like 50-foot sinkhole to play against all year until basically Sam Ersson couldn't hold on anymore, and they brought the Russian goalie Fedotov in probably a little too late. But I would not be surprised if the Philadelphia Flyers are a playoff team. I mean, they're going to be better than minus 26. I don't think that does them any justice. I think a lot like Washington, when they did lose, they lost badly. But I think they were in a lot of games very closely. I think that makes. I mean, you've followed this game a long time. You've covered it a long time. When teams play a lot of tight games, you know the margin of error is thin in the NHL today. But if you're competitive and you're in a lot of games, and I would say 80, 85%, 95% of the games the Flyers played last year, they were in them. I think you're going to see a much improved Flyers team. Obviously, when you add a world-class player, Matvei Michkov, he's only 19. Speaking of getting bad raps, I mean, I remember when this guy was being, he was supposed to be in the Bedard draft, right? Like he was 1A, 1B with Connor Bedard. And then obviously this geopolitical situation being the way it is really shouldn't have nothing to do with hockey, unfortunately, but it's affecting it. And he goes 7th in the draft, and it's going to be interesting, man. I do think he's probably going to be up there for the Calder. I don't know. We'll see. I watched a little bit of the Flyers yesterday in some preseason. I've been trying to catch all the preseason I could catch. Nothing jumps out at the page at me right away, but I really want to give it my full and undivided attention. But I really do see the Flyers like being there. I mean, if last year there were 4 teams from the Metro that made it. So I could see them being one of the 4 for sure. I just think, they really kind of re-signed everybody they were talking about trading except for Sean Walker. Maybe they move on Ristolainen. I think they're going to be in a much better situation having their goalies in the whole time. I thought they made the best of a bad situation with the Cutter Gauthier thing. They get Jamie Drysdale, who's a solid puck-moving defenseman by all practical sense of the world. He's a great person off the ice too, which anytime you can add a first-class individual on the ice. The big thing with him is, can he stay healthy? Let's hope for his sake, I'd love to see him stay healthy. So yeah, I mean, like I'm with you, man. The Flyers, I love Torts. My wife's a Rangers fan. He coached there. I remember when he coached Tampa to a Stanley Cup. I kind of grew up like a closeted Leafs fan a little bit and loved Dave Andreychuk. So thought, wow, this guy coached probably a less talented team and won the Stanley Cup. And I kind of seen him do more with less in New York. Like, I wonder what he would do with the team now. But there's some talent there and they've got some skill. I really like Farabee. Travis Konechny, I think he led the league in shorthanded goals or something too. Like, there's a lot of good things going up with the Flyers. And so the future is bright there. It's good for Philly fans. I feel like the NHL, it's like college football is good when Notre Dame is good, or, the NHL needs the Flyers to be good.
Yeah.
We need them to be competitive. It's a great market. Their fans are crazy. It's, it'll be good. And I don't think Torts is long for the job there, but just because I think he's age, I think he's getting up there, and he's it sounds like they're going to bring him into the fold as part of the organization above. But so maybe one of those assistant coaches eventually takes over in the next couple of years. But yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised if the Flyers are right there nipping at the door or make the playoffs. It's really just going to depend on their goaltending. But I feel like they have, the defense is maybe a little young too, and maybe older in some spots too. Ristolainen's a guy I don't necessarily trust. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how do you feel?
Well, to me, I think it's going to come down to health with the Flyers. I mean, Ristolainen, you talk about him, and he's had some injury problems. But Sean Couturier, if he can stay healthy, this guy is a
he's a Selke Trophy winner. Yeah,
he is a Selke. He can win the Selke, and that's my favorite award. That's the award my favorite award that
I agree with you.
Win. So if they're healthy, I think that they will. I think that there's going to be a battle of that wild card spot. Of course, you got the crossover side with the Atlantic Viking. I mean, the heavy expectations on Ottawa, heavy expectations on Buffalo this year. But if they fall, in Philadelphia, I can see the Flyers kind of hanging in there. So.
Yeah, I don't expect much from Ottawa. I know we're not talking Atlantic, but I mean the Atlantic is a meat grinder too, right?
Totally.
Younger and more skilled, I think, in a lot of ways. But yeah, so I mean, if I'm a Flyers fan, man, I feel like there's some real we didn't even talk about Owen Tippett. They got him in the Claude Giroux trade. He's going to be really good player.
And he got canned for that trade too, and that turned out actually a lot better than a lot of people gave him credit for.
I was saying Florida gave up too much for that Giroux as a rental. I thought for a minute. You don't think the Florida could use a 6'1" winger that can score like Owen Tippett in the last two cup runs? Who knows? But yeah, so Luchenko is an interesting guy. Of course, Scott Lawton. I mean, another gritty, Selke cut from the cloth type guy. I like Morgan Frost too, a guy that we probably haven't seen his potential.
Yeah.
They have one of the toughest SOBs too, Kevin, if you like old school hockey, and Nick Delorier. They just have everything on that roster. But like you said, if Ryan Ellis is playing or something, which I don't believe I don't know if he's healthy. He's a guy, if he could get in there. But Sanheim, they've got some guys. Cam York, maybe they get some stuff. I don't know. It'll be interesting, man. The real key with them, and the big thing is, I thought Erison played really well.
Yeah.
What are they going to get from Fedotov? And then I think Cal Peterson, are they going to let him play at all? I don't know. I mean, that was kind of a salary dump for LA, but could he refight? At one point he played okay. So could he find his game,
Yeah, it comes down to goaltending and health for Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Let's go to Pittsburgh while we were in Pennsylvania, because I think that this is the team that you've got Sidney Crosby, and Sidney Crosby, you don't doubt Sidney Crosby, but you look at this team and I just don't see the youth there. It's such an interesting disconnect what's going on there. You've got Crosby, you've got Malkin, you've got Erik Karlsson, you've got Chris Letang. You've got some talent there.
They added Kevin Hayes. He's also
Kevin Hayes is there now too. That's right. Where are they? What are we expecting from Pitt? What do you think Pittsburgh Penguins fans should expect this year?
So I think if they're smart, they're not expecting much. I just think the problem is you have maybe the greatest player of our generation in Sidney Crosby on the team, and do you really want to accept not making the playoffs? But I mean, so the problem with them too is like they're in a rock and a hard place. They need to compete because of the players they have on their team, but really, in reality, they should be trading these guys away and rebuilding the team.
Yeah.
You know, so I spoke to you before the show, but I had Colby Armstrong on, obviously, on my podcast. And he for our Metro preview, he said, you know, there's a lot of they got a lot of versatility. They got a lot of guys that can play center, you know, but there's a lot of like what is Jesse Puljujarvi? What are they going to get from Ricard Raquel? I did really like the Rucker McGroarty trade. I actually liked that for Winnipeg too. I thought Winnipeg wasn't going to be able to use McGroarty in their lineup, where I mean he might play top 6 for Pittsburgh, just depending on how things shake out. But Colby was, you know, he was like, you know, he liked Drew O'Connor. He said there was a guy that could add some physicality, maybe could up his game. He had a pretty good year. He liked Blake Lazard adding. I like that. He goes, he's like, you know, you get a good, like, kind of chippy guy. Marchand Sal, because Lazard's not a huge guy. Then they, you know, they've got guys like they brought in Sebastian Aho from the Islanders, played defense for the Islanders last year. So he's not an insanely old guy, you know. Matt Grzelcyk, they got. I don't want to say they added youth, but they added like some experience. Where if they're not getting it, I mean, look, they were a plus team. I mean, quite frankly, they did not make the playoffs last year because their power play was whatever. It cost, like Colby said, I mean, it cost former Capitals head coach and former Penguins before that assistant coach Todd Reardon his job. You never want to see anybody lose their job, but like that was 100% the reason they didn't make the playoffs. I wonder, they're older and they're going to be not as good. I think eventually you're going to see, you know, Sydney's going to slow down. It's Father Time is undefeated. So, I mean, he had 100 points, or he had an incredible year last year by all stretches of the imagination. He's still an
unbelievable for a lot of the year last year.
What?
He was in the MVP conversation for a lot of the year last year, and I think if they got into the playoffs, I think he might have won it.
Yeah, it would have been real hard to take it away. I mean, Kucherov had like 140 assists. McDavid had 140 assists. I mean, it was just a ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. It was, they had over 100 assists each. McDavid, Kucherov, McKinnon had a hell of a year. What did McKinnon almost scored every home game he was in? Like that was ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, they've got some questions. What do they get from Beauvillier? What do they get from some of these guys? I really actually thought they did fairly well on the Michael Bunting, or getting Michael Bunting in. Yeah. I thought he added a factor that they were kind of missing. Just get to the net. And then, of course, you know, Dubas had him in Toronto, so there's some familiarity there. I just wonder, I mean, like, I get it, but like, just be honest with the fans. Like, you need to rebuild. Like, I think that this is their year. You're going to make one more run at it. And I think after this, you should try to move on from some of these guys and start getting draft picks and stuff, like trading guys like Malkin but the problem is I think most of these guys have no trade clauses and this, that, and the other. So I would say this, would I be shocked if they make the playoffs? Absolutely not. But I just wonder, is it more of the same? And you know, will they? And then really, like, the real big question that we haven't even talked about is their goaltending is like straight up. Alex Nedeljkovic was the starter at the end of the year. He stole the pipes from Jarry. Yeah, and Jarry's the guy they've paid. So, like,
yeah, I mean,
obviously they're going to put him as the pencil in number one starter, Tristan Jarry, but what are you going to get from him? And, you know, they don't really have any young guys coming in to like spell that team. So I think if you're a big Sidney Crosby supporter and a Pittsburgh fans guy, Pittsburgh Penguins fan, you might be disappointed again. I mean, they've missed the playoffs 2 years in a row, man. Like, we talked about I really did like the Rucker McGrody ad. I've actually met his family a little bit, and he played at Michigan, obviously. I really do think he can make an impact. He's 6'1", 203. That's not a small guy. He's kind of a, glass banger type player. He can get into the gritty areas. So I think you see these college hockey guys come in. I think they have a little bit more time to let their bodies grow. They're not playing as much hockey. They don't have the injury problems that maybe a kid who plays 60 or so games in juniors, which, juniors is more physical, it's more physical than the NCAA. So I feel like they get to kind of study the game, and it gives them a little bit more to mature, like a fine wine type thing. So, Jake Gensel was that guy. He came in and was like, this guy, it's like, great, they get another player to help win, if you're rooting for the opposition. But and then, are they going to get something from Puljujarvi? Like he was a high pick. He could be something as he overall his hip problems and stuff. He's a big guy. He could really make a difference there. We know what they are, but I really would have a tough time. I think they're going to have struggle. I don't think they'll be out of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had to start like Edmonton did last year, but they ain't climbing out of that, so.
Well, I mean, if there is a coach that I think, it's hard to, I was thinking about this today. It is hard to fire. It's hard to really justify a lot of coaching firings right now. And I'm not saying that. And we always have the first coach fire debate. I mean, really, it's hard to pick anyone other than Mike Sullivan at this point, because everyone else has either been a recent hire or has had some longevity, some success and longevity behind them.
Yeah. But, 2 Stanley Cups, man, I think it's going to be hard for them.
It's going to be hard. Yeah. That is a hard decision there. And I mean,
yeah.
I in that situation at all. I think he's in a very tough rock and a hard place. It's not a guy he brought in. And he's the GM and the president. I mean, like I'm with you. I mean, I don't know that I can disagree with you, man. But we also have David Quinn there now. He's going to run the power play, former Rangers coach, former BU coach, former Sharks coach. I was actually surprised the Sharks let Quinn go. Yeah, I felt really bad for him. He did exactly what he needed to do and coach that team to the worst record in the NHL. But they were, on any given night, I thought they gave a lot of really good effort with that team and the talent on that team. So not to get off topic, but it is kind of relative to Pittsburgh since David Quinn's going to be there. Yeah. So I just think of Pittsburgh's power play as like, if they're this close to the same team they were last year, but their power play is significantly better, they're probably really right there competing for a playoff for sure. Yeah. I think that they battle for a wild card spot. I don't see them in the top 3.
Yeah,
but I'm battling them for a wild card spot.
Yep. I agree.
Here's one of my Metro hot takes. I think too many people are sleeping on the New York Islanders.
I don't. Is that who you want to talk about next?
Yeah, let's. You've got a full season with Patrick Waugh behind you, and this is a guy. This is not the Patrick Waugh that was coaching Colorado a few years ago. This is
the Memorial Cup champion.
Yeah, and he brought some guys from that Memorial Cup team, and they may not like beards in New York, but Lou Lamoriello loves to win. Patrick Waugh loves to win. He has the cup rings there, and they didn't do a lot in the offseason. And they do have an unhealthy goalie in Ilya Soroka, but
yeah, that's the big thing right there. I think it starts and ends with him, right?
But I really like that blue line, though. I really like Noah Dobson. I think he's going to be in the conversation for Canada for the Four Nations. I think Adam Pelech will be watch for him to be a conversation in the Four Nations Cup as well. I think that's a guy that's very underrated. They got a really good blue line. It's about scoring. Other than Horvat and Barzal and maybe Anders Lee, you don't have a lot of scoring on that team. Well, Brock Nelson seems to pop some points in every once in a while.
I love the one free agent acquisition was Anthony Duclair. That guy, all he does is pot goals, and he's speedy, and he could stay with. I don't disagree with you. I'm with you. I think a full season of Patrick Waugh. I was 100% thought they were going to make more noise than they did. They made the playoffs, but and then the one thing you'd say is they could probably survive a Sorokin injury for a while because Varlamov is. I mean, they probably have one of the better tandems in the NHL there. They've got him locked up to a long-term deal. And then we'll see, like, if they play some of these younger guys, I don't know, Tristan Lennox or whoever they have there. But I'm with you, man. I think Romanov hasn't hit his stride. He's only 24 years old. Pulick and Pellick, those guys are solid players, man. And then Scott Mayfield's a good player, gritty. And Noah Dobson had an unbelievable year. I agree with you so much, man. I think Patrick Waugh is going to bring out the best. I'm a huge believer in him. I think he will be a Stanley Cup winning coach at some point in time. I'm sorry here. I apologize. I got dogs breaking perimeter here. I got to put my do not disturb on here. I thought I had it on until the next day, so I apologize. I'm with you, man. Like Tice Thompson's an interesting kid. Tage's brother, could he get something out of this kid's? He's a little, I think he's like 25 now, but they have Maggio is a guy that my friend Kim, I don't know if you know Isles girl. She's a big Islanders fan. She does a Kim in the Crease. So I've had her on the show a couple times, and she loves this Maggio kid. Like, I think he's from Windsor, Ontario. He's 22 years old. Like, you see these guys who kind of come in the minors, and if they're developed right. And one thing I'll say, like, I'm wearing the Devils thing. Lou Lamoriello had the Devils rolling for a long time. They had a lot of talent come up. Like, everybody says they're not drafting well, but like the guy's not in the business for 60 years and doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, like so I will say this. I watched a pretty good portion of their preseason game against the Rangers. They always play them tough. The Rangers played like their entire first line essentially against that team. It was at MSG, and the Rangers ended up coming back and winning. But I think at one point they were up 4-0. So I know Patrick Waugh is going to take a lot of lessons from that. And I think it ended up being a 5-4 Rangers win, but like he knows what he has there. And I don't disagree. This is not an old team. They got rid of the old guys. They brought in Matt Martin on a PTO, but they don't have Cutter back. Now, some of that sucks. They're not going to have that toughness. But right now they need the speed and the secondary scoring to get them through the regular season, in my opinion. So, but I would not be surprised. I do think the Islanders will be right there as a playoff team again. I think it's going to be very close. I hear what you're saying. I could easily see them being top 3 too. I do. I'm not against that. I mean, we're going to see a lot from Horvat. I think we're going to see a lot. I mean, Brock Nelson, Anders Lee, those guys are good players. I think they've just had some injuries there. I think last year too, the forward core. I mean, everybody's hit with them, right? But I love what you're saying. I 100% agree with you. I'm not going to be shocked if the Isles are in the playoffs. I feel like we look at them like they're an old team, but they're really not. They've just they've just been really close to the Stanley Cup a couple of years. And a lot of that is because they've got maybe one of the best goalies in between the pipes. So if Sorokin's not there, that is tough. And if he misses like the bulk of the season, I think there's probably no chance they make the playoffs. But if he's there for 75% of the games, I think they're probably fine, and they're probably competing for a playoff spot easily. Yeah. So I don't disagree with you at all.
All right, let's get to your Washington Capitals, because they do have one of the more – this is an intriguing season for them. They brought in Jacob Chychrun.
Yeah.
They brought in Pierre-Luc Dubois. They don't have the best reputations. But where is most?
Well, hold on a second. Clue me in on Jacob Chychrun, because I've not tracked with that. I mean, I know he wanted out of Arizona, but I don't really hold that against him.
It's not been as public as Pierre-Luc Dubois in terms of like the obvious there is something off, but I've always felt there's something off with Jacob Chikrin, and it hasn't felt like he was a fit in Arizona. It didn't feel like this was a fit in Ottawa. And it's going to be interesting in Washington. I mean, they made some pretty significant moves. I mean, let's not forget the Andre Mangiapane signing trade as well from the Calgary Flames. And this was a guy that did score 35 goals at one point. Yeah. I don't think you can expect 35 goals from him.
I think 25 would be
25 is your ideal.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some people that would look at the situation similar to Pittsburgh, where you got a guy that's running for a very historic thing. Whether he gets it or not
he gets it.
Well, does he get it this year?
I think he gets it this year, and I'll tell you why. This was not covered except for by two reporters last year, Sammy Silver from the Hockey News and EJ Erratic, only because I prompted him. So this was not talked about on the Canadian media and the national media whatsoever until late in the year, and then Biz picked it up too. CCM stopped making his stick before the season started. He did not have his regular stick, and he was the first half of the season where he was streaky and not scoring. He was figuring out what he could find, and he finally found something. I don't know the name of the company that worked, and then he started potting goals at a 50 goal pace. I think he is going to cut. I've heard he is much lighter. He's coming in. He doesn't have to be physical anymore. Like, that part of Ovechkin's game is over. So I do think he gets it. Now, here's where I'll push back on you on them being like Pittsburgh. Outside of Ovechkin, this team is not old. Like, they're very young. Oh, I mean, John Carlson's up there a bit. Nick Dowd, but Nick Dowd is what Nick Dowd is. Great, fourth line center. That's what he's going to play 8 minutes a night. That's what you want from an aging veteran. TJ Oshie isn't going to play. Nick Backstrom isn't going to play. Those guys are done. Their careers are over. Tom Wilson's not old. I mean, he's older. Ivan Mirsudichenko, Connor McMichael, Hendrix Lapierre, Mangiapane, not old. Alexei Protas, Taylor Radish, Alexander Alexiev, Ethan Bear, Martin Ferravari, and then they bring in Matthew Roy too, which I did like that pickup for Washington. Right. They have, honestly, Kev, they have too much depth on D because they have Rasmus Sandin and Trevor Van Riemsdyk too. So I love what they did getting rid of Darcy Kemper. So the big X factor is PLD, right? Can he play like he did when he was with the Blue Jackets in the playoffs that one year? We expect, again, PLD, not old, 26 years old. I understand the stuff with him. If he plays second line center, first line center, and gets 60, 65 points, I think the Caps are winning. And I think they're easily in the playoffs. I do. I think they have a very good injection of youth. You have to understand too, man, this is a team that has won the Calder Cup in the AHL. They've got a really good farm system there in Hershey. This isn't just me being a fan. I actually don't really like talking about the Caps that much because people are like, oh, you're a Caps fan. But I love the Taylor Radish ad. I love the Brandon Duhaime ad.
That's a good ad too.
I mean, just
damn good hockey player.
Yeah, and Brandon Duhaime and Jacob Chychrun are best friends, apparently. So I really expect Chychrun. I just think Ottawa didn't need a left shot D. Like, Chychrun never made sense to me for Ottawa. The top pairing of John Carlson and Jacob Chychrun is going to be really interesting to me. I thought the Caps really lacked some depth last year. They missed guys like Brendan Dillon, which we're going to get to, right?
Yeah.
But Rasmus Sandin was hurt a lot. He could kind of quarterback that second power play. Ovechkin didn't have his stick. Oshie was hurt the whole year. I mean, they just really haven't found an effective replacement for Nick Backstrom too. They're going to need a lot from Mangiapane because he's a good two-way player. They need that two-way. Here's where I say This is why I think the Caps make the playoffs. I do. I think the reason why is Spencer Carberry, and it's because he coached at the University of Alaska. No, I'm sorry, he played with Justin Bourne at the University of Alaska Anchorage. If you didn't know, Spencer Carberry was on that team. Spout out Sportsnet's Justin Bourne. Love you, JB. I think he's just an incredible coach. For years, I would watch Pittsburgh run circles around the Capitals because they used analytics and were smarter, and that is the Capitals now. They buy cap friendly. They do everything very analytically based. Brian McClellan's now the president of hockey ops. They bring in Patrick to be the GM now. Craig Patrick, I believe. And I just I love everything they're doing. They tanked last year or the year before. They end up getting a good pick. And some of these guys are going to be playing in the league for them sooner than later. So I really like what they did. Adding Logan Thompson and getting rid of Darcy Kemper was horrible last year. And Charlie Lindgren was spectacular. He should have got more Vezina love.
I think that there's a lot of people that by the way, it's Chris Patrick, not Craig Patrick.
Chris, thank you. Sorry. Craig Patrick was the assistant coach for the Miracle on Ice.
I think Charlie Lindgren is going to be his first full season as a number one guy. I think that he
was the number one, Kev, the whole year, like no doubt in my mind.
The official, like we know he's number one. There's not a goaltending controversy anymore, and
I really don't think there was one, man. It was evident. Like Kemper was not good, and Charlie Lindgren was like 920 save percentage good. Like he was incredible. But anyway, I apologize. I watched a lot of Capitals.
That to me, it's going to come down to goaltending. It's going to come down to how PLD plays, and if a lot of these guys have that comeback season, and I do agree with. I think Spencer Carberry, highly respected. I think John Carlson's an underrated defenseman. I think Washington will be an interesting team. I can see why you're seeing them in the playoffs. I do think that they're in the battle.
Charlie Lindgren had a 911 save percentage and 6 shutouts last year and won 25 games. So
this is the team that I think is taking the most. We'll get to the team that I think is taking the most slide. And I think if anyone's going to fall out of this, I'm really interested in what happens with Carolina. They lost Brett Pesce. Brady Shea. Jake Gensel. I don't think Marty Necas signed there, but I don't know.
Marty Necas is with them. He did sign. He signed.
That's true, but is this a happy Marty Necas?
I think it is because everybody else is gone, and they're going to need Necas in a lot of ways.
I love Seth Jarvis. I think he's a guy that I think might be on Team Canada's radar at Four Nations.
I don't disagree with that.
He can't score. And that I think that to me is
the bigger question with them, Kev, is their goaltending. Really?
Yeah. They lost Teuvo Teravainen as well. That is a huge loss.
Yeah. So here's what I'll say. Because of how they do business, they do everything very much analytically, but they also believe in their youth. And they have Ryan Suzuki, they have Drury, they have Jack Drury, they have Jason Blake's son. I'm not saying these guys could come in and make an impact, but you've got some skill in there. They didn't give up even close to their top prospects for Gensel. So the fact that they didn't re-sign him isn't great, but they have a ton of talent in that thing. And I think the one thing, like you're saying, that would concern me, and I think their fans would say this too, is that youth going to mix with the veterans that they have there to come up with a championship? Because yes, Brent Burns is old, man. He's 39. He's old player. Obviously a guy I'd love to see win the Stanley Cup. Dmitry Orlov, starting to get long in the tooth, my man. Was damn good with the Caps. Now they bring in Sean Walker too, who's good with the Flyers, good, played pretty well for the Avalanche until they were out. I just don't know. You're going to run Freddie Anderson and Kochetkov off again. That's the thing there. What are you going to get from those guys? I think that's probably they have Scott Morrow, defenseman. They've played for Team USA and won a World Juniors. They've got some really young talent I think they're like, this is it. We're going to have our talent step up. And, I know Brendamore's kid's there too. Like, I don't think he's going to make the team, but they've got some youth there where you could but like you said, Jordan Stahl, not young.
Yeah.
Brett Burns, not young. So, but they've got Chatfield for like next to nothing. I remember
that guy is just
very good player.
So much. He's a very good. He reminds me of Chris Tanev every time I see him play. He reminds me a lot of Chris Tanev.
Well, Kipper was pissed he didn't as a guy who who's like, why didn't this guy? He goes, I think he would have got 4.5, 5 on the open market. He's like, I don't know why he didn't take it to free agency. That was the guy that he was like, I like this guy, right shot D, 6'1", is always in the places. So they bring in Gossespear too. Like, I thought Gossespear actually played really well with Detroit. I was kind of surprised that they didn't bring him back, but I guess they have faith in their youth there in Detroit. And this is what I think they're doing here. I do think, though, man, from everything I've read and heard, they really tried to re-sign Jake Gensel. Yeah. And that was kind of a big loss. So they, but I think they're top 3 in the Metro, man. I think they make the playoffs. I understand you feel like they won't come out, but I just don't. I mean, dude, we talked about John Tortorella.
Rod Brind'Amour. Yeah,
Rod Brind'Amour is an incredible coach. Nobody's going to be lazy on that team. They're always going to be in games. The way they play hockey, it gets them through the regular season for sure. I don't think they're a Stanley Cup contender. I think that window is probably shut for them.
They remind me of the LA Kings. There's a lot of good pieces to them, but they just don't have. I don't think they have an elite, scary offensive guy that is going to put the puck in the net, that you're like, okay, this is the guy we need.
Well, you hope that's Sebastian Aho or Jarvis, but yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, they just don't. Yeah, they just don't have it. That's my concern with Carolina.
Yeah,
then
I think they're there though.
I could see them finishing 3rd or 4th. I think that there might be a battle between them and the Islanders for 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on the Islanders, but I just think they're gonna make it. Last year they got 36 goals and 53 assists, 89 points from Aho, plus 30.
I think Aho is a great player.
Yeah,
I really do. But I mean, I think for them to get to that next level, they need to find that one scary, snipey offensive guy. I
think they thought they had that in Jake Gensel, right? Yeah. So that's why that's such a big loss for them. But yeah, they did. They lost a lot of skill and talent on that team, man, for sure. They lost Nason too. We didn't even talk about Nason because we haven't talked about New Jersey yet. But yeah, to lose Shea, to lose Nason, to lose Gensel, and it's D'Angelo. They lost some guys there.
They lost some guys. They did. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, they still have some good talent there. There's no question. And Jacob Slavin is a criminally underrated defenseman.
Dude, the guy is could be up for the defensive defenseman if they had that award, the Rod Langway or whatever we should say. Like, they need to do a defensive defenseman award because, like, like Carlson won the Norris a couple years ago. I was like, come on, man. Like,
yeah, that was ridiculous.
Let's give some love to these guys who actually play defense.
Yeah. Yes. Amen.
And I'm with you, Kev. I love the Selke. Like, I have a Doug Gilmour 1989 Calgary Flames jersey hanging up on the wall here, man.
Wow.
I'm a big fan of that award. I saw Doug Gilmour at the Hockey Hall of Fame and didn't talk to him. I wussed out, man. I should have went and said, dude, you're my favorite player growing up, because he was. Anyway, but I'm with you, man. The Selke, baby. It's a and Aho could be a Selke guy.
He could be.
Jarvis could be a Selke guy. But when you're talking about Jacob Slavin, that guy takes like 2 penalties a year. And and he's one of the best defensemen in the NHL. He should get some real consideration for the Norris or defensive defenseman of the year or whatever yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. They don't go from a plus 63 team to being like a sub 500 team. They won 52 games. I think they're like a 90, 100-point team. They're not going to be a 111-point team, but I don't think they're going to fall off that bad just because I do think they're going to get a lot of injection from the youth. I think they're going to call up guys and, I think too, they finally got their AHL thing worked out too. That was a problem. They were kind of farming their players out to the Chicago Wolves. And I think that just really kind of made it hard for them to kind of do, because, when you go, it's independently owned by someone else. They're not going to use the players the way you want them. I mean, most of these teams now use these AHL teams to grow their players, to get them where they want them to be. So I'm with you, man. I understand. I definitely think they'll be out. Not the team they were last year, but they're going to be a playoff team. I see them being a top 3 from the Metro more than likely. I mean, barring some catastrophic injury or anything like that, where they lose a couple of their really good players, and that would be not surprised. If that was the case, let me ask you a hypothetical, since you were doing hot takes. If you think they'll be out, would you like to see them trade Brett Burns to a Stanley Cup team? And then if so, who would that be? Your Vancouver Canucks there, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can, the fascinating thing with, I think Edmonton would want Brent Burns.
Yeah.
I think
they could
use. I don't think Brent Burns would hurt Vancouver either.
Wouldn't he kind of fill that Zadorov role that they're going to miss? I feel like.
No, I mean, Burns would be a little bit different because he's a bit of the puck moving. He's kind of that
very good
moving guy on the right side that I think that they were expecting. And I mean, Philip Rana can still fill that role in Vancouver, but I think ultimately when I look back at that Canuck Oilers series, I think one of the areas they just didn't get enough of, obviously, was the power play. And I think a guy like Burns can certainly add to that. I think the Oilers will have to be in that conversation when we do the Pacific. That will be a fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
And don't count Vegas finds a way to get these guys. I mean,
yeah, they don't need them though. With adding Hannafin, you think Vegas needs them though? I feel like Vegas has one of the best defensive cores in the NHL still. They have Theodore. They have
I will say they have the best blue line in the Pacific Division.
Yeah, they have Hannafin. I feel like they're fine. Like they're the one. I probably worry about their depth scoring a little bit, but I don't know. Yeah. No, I hear you. I don't think Carolina is going to collapse. I think they're competing for a playoff spot. I think they're, as I said, in a battle with third or fourth with the Islanders is kind of where I'm seeing. Yeah, I think that their youth injection is going to surprise some people, but I do agree with you. They're not going to be a 111-point team. I think 90, 95, 100 in there, that range. I do think they're in. I just think Rod's such a good coach, and they have such a good culture there. I do think, and they have a great fan base, man. Like their fans are awesome.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's one of those barns. Like I tell Canadian people, I'm like, yeah, there's transplants there. Like there's halfbackers and stuff. They call them halfbackers, people that moved from New York to Florida, then moved halfway back. So they live in the Carolinas. But so you'll get Ranger fans and Bruins fans, but those are fan bases that are over 100 years old now. Like that's why they have a lot of fans. Caps fans too. Like there'll be a good number of Caps fans at those games. We played them in an outdoor game and stuff. So, like I really do think, man, like it will be what do they get from the youth, but I don't think they're going to take that much of a step off.
No,
they're going to definitely have to get more from their top guys. I agree with you. I mean, it's definitely not going to be the team they were, but the goaltending is the biggest thing, right? Like if the goaltending's not good for them, that's the one thing I don't get about analytics, man. You still need I still think you need a grade A goaltender, like what Boston is doing right now. If the Rangers don't re-sign Shesterkin, excuse me. Like, what are you doing? Like, these guys are once in a generational player. Like, I know Henrik Lundqvist never won a cup, but good God, man.
One of the best to do it.
Yeah.
Let's get to the Rangers here because
Yeah.
I mean you've got Igor Shesterkin, you've got a very interesting situation there where I think they're going to go all in and sign Igor Shesterkin. I mean, I think we're going to be talking about a 15 million a year goaltender there, but
12.5. I'm guess 12.5 is what I think.
I've heard he wants 15. I think he's but they're going to sign
Well,
him.
you know what they say, Kev. You can wish in one hand and shit in the other, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to re-sign Keandre Miller. They've got to I mean, dude, I watch a lot of Rangers hockey because my wife is a Rangers fan. Like, I have to root for that team when they're not playing my team, which subsequently we call the divorce cup in this house. But I mean, they're getting long in the tooth, man. Like,
this is going to be the year I think that they're going to be pushing their chips in, and
they got to win it this year. I think
there's a lot of pressure on them, but I also think that this team's I don't want to say that people are sleeping on them, but I feel like I don't think Mika Zibanejad gets enough credit for being as good of a center as he is. I think he's a better center than a lot of people give him credit for.
Yeah, but he went invisible in the playoffs, man. That was the big problem with him.
Yeah, for sure he did.
Yeah,
sure.
Streaky. That's my big thing with Zibanejad. Great player, love him. Thought they fleeced Ottawa for that trade when that happened, and kind of thought Ottawa gave up on him a little early. Ended up working out really good for the Rangers. I think right now, man, no question about it, this is the best team in the NHL. Like from top to bottom, if they get what they could get from if Lafreniere turns into like something we expected him to be,
he took a huge step, and he took a huge step in the playoffs.
Right. I think with him too, man, like in order to become a number one, you got to get number one ice time. Like the problem with that on the Rangers is he wasn't getting that. So I like some of the guys they brought into. They didn't do a ton. Grew as a guy, I kind of liked him with Anaheim. He's gritty. They don't really. I just feel like there's really not a weakness anywhere on this team. They have defensive depth. We haven't even seen what Keandre Miller can do, in my opinion. No. Adam Fox, great. Trouba is probably their biggest liability, and he's the captain of the team.
And I think he played with some pretty significant injuries during the playoff last
year. I heard he
year.
had like a broken leg or something.
Yeah, it was a lot. And Ryan Lindgren had played with some pretty significant injuries as well.
Yeah.
I love that blue line. I love the blue line. I think their forward depth is they don't have that superstar, but I mean,
they do.
I think Phillips, you don't have Kako are going to take steps this year.
You don't think Artemi Panarin's a superstar? He had.
Well, that's a good. Well, yeah.
I mean, he had 120 points last year, too.
I forget. I just kind of was like.
I mean, that's not fair to that. I mean, I'm just saying, dude. The guys had like 5.
Okay, yeah, I deserve to be called out for that. Yes, Panarin, and he was in the Hart conversation last.
Yeah, he almost had 50 goals, bro. Like he really can't. I thought his game was unbelievable.
He is you almost forget. Sometimes you almost forget about this guy, but he's one of the most skilled wingers in the league.
Yeah, he's small. That's the knock on him. He's 6 foot, 177 pounds or whatever. So probably by the time he gets to the playoffs, he's $165. But like, yeah, bro. Like I don't know. He had in 16 games played, he had 15 points too in the playoffs. Like he was not the problem in the playoffs.
No. You're right. That's totally fair. That's totally
yeah.
I don't.
Not bad for an undrafted guy, huh?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and this is a guy, a lot of people missed on him for sure.
Yeah, so great scouting by the Chicago Blackhawks organization who blazed the trail there for a while for the entire NHL to follow. Yeah, to me, the Rangers win this division probably going away. I told my wife, this is Sam Rosen's last year calling games for them. They're going to rally around Sam. I think, he's one of the most iconic hockey broadcasters out there. I mean, I think of like Rick Jeanneret, rest in peace, Rick Jeanneret, obviously Jack Edwards, you love him or hate him. He had a unique sound. I don't see really anywhere this team has a weakness. Yeah, you worry a little bit about their secondary scoring, but like they got Riley Smith, Stanley Cup guy, he could fill in. They just need some guys on the bottom. I thought Trocheck was incredible for them last year. Jimmy VC, smart hockey player. Like if they get anything out of Capo Caco, like, but he's good defensive player. I think that they can compete with anybody, including Edmonton. I think this could easily be Edmonton Rangers Cup final. I'll be rooting for the Rangers, obviously, because of my wife. But they brought it like Chad Ruhwedel as a kind of a nice veteran defenseman, kind of bottom six guy. I don't know. I like a lot of what they have. Like I said, I watched them play the Islanders, and they came back. They are lethal, and then they arguably have the best goalie in the NHL. So it's like, where I mean, they won the President's Cup. That's probably the only thing you could say bad, which is, to me, I feel like the NHL needs to figure something out. Like, you win the President's Cup, you got to win 3 games in the first round. Like, I feel like if you have this dominant record, like, you should get an advantage in the playoffs. Not a first round bye, because I actually feel like that would hurt you.
Yeah, I mean, you're wearing a Dodgers cap. That hurt them last year, right?
So, yeah, no, we know in baseball the best team never wins.
No.
The team that cheats wins. So that's how we know that is. I'm wearing a Dodgers cap, but we don't follow baseball much anymore. Although Shohei stuff's pretty exciting, right?
Shohei is the best baseball player I've ever seen, and
it's just cool to see him get the chance to play in the playoffs.
Yes, that's going to be
awesome.
Yeah,
okay,
so you've got the Rangers. You're favoring the Rangers.
They're winning that division, man. They're the cream of the crop, barring catastrophic injuries. They are a deep team that did really well last year. They're extremely well coached. It's like, you can make an argument they've got some problems in the front office. Like, what's Drury where's he go? I mean, I think we're going to see guys like Kreider and maybe, God forbid Zibanejad, maybe Jacob Trouba, but those guys won't be on the roster in a couple of years. That's fair. I don't know. They're 55 win team. They may not be that good, but they're going to be a 110-point team, I think. I just don't know how you look at it any other way.
Let's look at. Okay, so let's leave Rangers just for a second.
That's it.
Compare them to the Devils.
Yep.
Because the Devils have made all these moves. They bring in Jacob Markstrom. They brought in Brendan Dillon. They brought in Brett Pesce. They brought in Sheldon Keefe.
Paul Cotter. The other thing too, Kev, is let's not discount the Jake Allen ad last year. I thought he played incredibly well for them. They do. Those are their 2 oldest players, Jake Allen and Markstrom. But that's some really good veteran goaltending. Those guys don't have to be overplayed. I think they can split time evenly with those guys. There's no ego there, I don't think. The Devils are making the playoffs.
Yeah. My thing with the Devils is I just wonder. I think that I actually have them winning the division, and I have the Rangers beating them in the playoffs. I just think that the Devils are still in this position that they need to learn to win, where the Rangers have already had a couple of failures ahead of them, right? And I think failure leads teams to win.
One of those failures was to the Devils.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And I think Matt Rempe got into the Devils' head too. I mean, they had to go and find Curtis McDermott last year. I think the Rangers are still the bullies in the division, but I think the Devils may get off to a slow start, but I think they're going to get on a run once they get everything kind of figured out after American Thanksgiving, and they'll start rolling. They'll win the division, but I don't think they get out of the Metro in terms of the playoffs. I think the Rangers finish second and beat them in the playoffs.
Here's why I will push back on just a little bit, just because of recent information. I believe Pesce is a little banged up. Luke Hughes is out. He's going to be out till like December, sounds like.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, they have a shit ton of depth. Seamus Casey, also I believe played at Michigan, going to come in. Brendan Dillon, unbelievable veteran ad. Old guy, though. Brendan Dillon, like 34 years old now. Dougie Hamilton being back is huge. Like that was like no one even talks about. That's like an ad.
That's a huge return. Absolutely,
that's going to help their power play. My biggest thing with them, and I love the Devils. They add Nason. That's a great ad for Stefan Nason that played for Carolina last year. That's a great ad. I think they're going to get a lot more out of Timo Meier. They re-signed Dawson Mercer. Those guys can all pot the buck. Eric Hall is not a bad bottom six guy. Paul Cotter was a nice ad. I think Cotter was on those Vegas teams that won the cup, right? So there's a guy, he's got some experience. Dude, we talked about Selke. Like this guy never even gets talked about as one of the best players in the league. And their captain. And I don't know why Nico Hischier.
Nico Hischier is a Selke guy for sure.
Yeah, like unbelievable. Like, and if Jack Hughes can stay healthy for 80 games, like I love this team. I think they're going to be a dominant team for a lot of years in the NHL if they keep this core group together. They've kept a lot of these guys, like Hughes' salary is ridiculous. So they have a, I also like Nico Dawes, their other goalie. I like him. He's kind of their younger guy. I feel like he can come in and spell. He's only 24, so he can come in and spell Markstrom and Allen. Seamus Casey, like I said, I really like this team. I think they're going to get off to a slow start, though, with some of the preseason injuries and stuff that we've seen from them. And they've had some problems there. I would definitely look at maybe revamping their conditioning or how they're having their athletes train if they're having a ton of injuries. But I could not disagree with you, though. Like, they could easily win the Metro. They're making the playoffs. Like,
I think they'll win the Metro in the regular season, but I think when it comes down to the playoffs, a series between the Rangers and the Devils, I think the Rangers will beat them.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that either. I mean, I feel like, Curtis McDermott, but like, dude, I saw a lot of Rempe train with Chris Kreider, worked on skating, looked really good, was winning like the up-down skatings and stuff. Like, if that guy gets 5-6 goals for them and they actually play him and they're like undefeated with him in the lineup, I would play him. Like, just put him in there, figure it out. Bottom six, like Lavi. I love Laviolette, but like, I think sometimes he gets in his own way. So like, you got these numbers that are showing you win with this guy in the lineup because he's such a polarizing thing. I can say this as a Caps fan. That was Tom Wilson for a very long time. Tom Wilson probably got more credit than he even deserved. But I mean, Tom Wilson's also a guy that's got enough skill. He can score 20 goals for you. So, but I'm with you, man. Like, there's just nothing to hate about this team. Where they had weakness, I almost would consider it a strength. They don't have the goalie. They just weren't cutting it with Vanacek and Akira Schmid, unfortunately. I like those guys both. Wanted to see them be successful, but no, they've got some world-class goalies now in Markstrom and Jake Allen. I think that can really help them. And then if you're like, well, those guys are 34 years old, but like, I do like Nico Dawes to come in and play a half dozen games for them, nice young guy. And if they can play good defensively, just having Dougie Hamilton is going to be a world's better. Like, they played Nemec and Hughes like in the top six. I don't think that was the plan at all. I'm not even sure Nemec would have played in the. I don't think Lindy wanted to play those guys. Even Hughes, yes, but I'm not sure Nemec would even have played that much in the NHL. And I feel like this, and I don't know, I'm a little bit old school when it comes to defensemen. It feels like to me, defensemen, it takes a lot longer for them to mature.
Yeah, they were talking about this, last night with on a Thursday night with the Canucks. I wasn't on, but Sean and Chris and Tyler were talking about DPD, as we call him, Elias Pettersson. There's, of course, forward PD and then now DPD.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't played enough in the National Hockey League to say that he's ready. And I think you need to season these guys. I think even forwards, like anybody, I'm with you. Like, you don't need to rush people into the lineup here into the NHL. Let them season, let them get that time in the AHL, get them ready. I mean, sure, if you have a Connor Bedard or a Celebrini or anything like that, Matvei Michkov, there's guys that are ready. But it's not everybody. 95% of players need more seasoning.
Yeah, I'm with you 1,000,000%. Like, we've been kind of spoiled the last few years because I'm like, I can't remember a defenseman coming in like Pronger maybe but I think even when he came up with Hartford, it wasn't like he was getting that type of ice time. But like the Makar, Quinn Hughes, these guys are freaks. These are once in a lifetime players, like you do not see young guys like this. John Carlson was a pretty young guy who came in for the Capitals and was fairly good, but he wasn't even like the top. They didn't make him the top D pair right away. So it's like, I'm with you, man. I want to see a lot more. I feel like we're maybe 10 years away from seeing the best of what Luke Hughes and what Simone Nemec can give us. Yeah. So, I mean, it's ridiculous the level of talent and stuff that this team has as far as and how long they could be good as far as the New Jersey Devils. I think Fitzgerald's done a really good job. Honestly, the job that you've seen them do is sort of what you'd like to see the Rangers have done. That being said, where they've missed, obviously, is in goaltending. So they were able to fix that vis-a-vis free agency. I do think they're going to be a very competitive team. I would not be surprised if they're top 3. I'm a little nervous about their injury stuff, especially with Hughes. Seems like it's hard for him to play a full season, I don't think he has done so in his career. And it's young. I mean, he's 23 years old. Like, it can't be critical again. But I think in 3 to 5 years, I don't think there'll be any question that this is the best team in the NHL.
Yeah. This organization will win a cup very soon. Yeah. I just don't think it's this year.
Yeah, Jack Hughes has actually played 78 games. That's the highest level. That was 2 seasons ago. And he had 99 points that year.
Yeah. No, he's an electric player for sure.
Yeah.
If he can stay healthy, it's going to be good. So this is the way I have the Metro for the regular season: Jersey first, Rangers second, Carolina third, Islanders fourth, Washington fifth, Philadelphia sixth, Columbus 7th.
Did you say Pittsburgh? Where was Pittsburgh?
Oh, Pittsburgh.
9th.
Washington.
Yeah, I think the Caps are going to be better.
I'm going to put Washington ahead of Pittsburgh.
I think they'll be better. I just think in every way, shape, or form. Now, but that being said, what are you going to get from PLD? We know what we're going to get from Crosby. So, yeah.
Washington is in goal, though. And I think that Lindgren is the edge I would give for that.
Yeah, but I like Kev, I like Logan Thompson. That was a good ad.
That's a good ad, too.
This is a guy who's been a starter and been a very good player for Vegas. And I feel like that was a good move. Like, I was so impressed with what McClellan did right out the door before he turned it over to, you said
Chris Patrick.
I don't know why I have a problem. I believe he might be related to Craig Patrick, actually. Craig Patrick was the general manager for the Penguins for a while, but he was assistant coach under Herb Brooks for the 1980 Miracle on Ice. That was America. We know that because if you were alive then and you care about it, I was obviously then, but very young. Yeah, man, I didn't really rank the teams, but I'll I don't disagree with what you said. I would not be shocked if Washington or Pittsburgh is out of the playoffs. I do think the Flyers will probably be right there with those teams. I think it's New York, New Jersey, Carolina, and I think that 4th spot, if there is a 4th one, is going to be between the Islanders, Capitals, and Penguins, and maybe the Flyers. I think that's how it's going to shape up. It's going to be tight, man. Like, it's going to be, I mean, Washington won 40 last year. That's a pretty good win-loss thing. But they didn't have good plus minus, but I have a lot of respect for Carberry. I think they could maybe get in again, but I'm with you, man. So what do you think? 92, 93 points gets you in, 94, 95 gets you a wild card maybe, and then you're 100 points.
I mean, my quick math, I mean, I think the 4 teams that should be competing for the playoffs in the Atlantic: of Boston, Florida, Toronto, Tampa.
Yep, I think that'll be the exact same. I think Detroit's not ready. I think Buffalo would be the closest one in that. I don't think Ottawa or Montreal are going to compete for a playoff spot. No offense to those teams. I think it's Buffalo and Detroit for that final wild card, along with probably Tampa. We'll see what everybody says. Tampa's going to take a step back, but they added Gensel. You're probably doing an Atlantic. Florida lost some people, but they're still going to be good team.
They're still going to be good. And then Boston got Sidorov and Lindholm, and Toronto did add some people. Toronto, I think, is a better team this year than last year.
Here's the thing about Boston, though. If they don't re-sign Swayman, there's no chance they make the playoffs. Because they don't have anybody.
Like, it depends on when. Like, you're not going to do anything with Korpisalo, but it being good grief, this team, Boston didn't have a number 1 center last year. We thought they were done last year without.
And they won 100. Yeah, they had 109 points, 147 games. Yeah, I got you. And they're going to have Poitras back, healthy, younger, with NHL experience. Yeah, no, man. But, eventually, like I said, every year, 4 to 6 teams don't make the playoffs. And I don't want to keep saying Boston's going to fall off. They're a plus 43, man. Like, I don't know, man. Florida does. I don't think I actually think this is Toronto's division to win this year. They should do it. They have the team. They're probably there. But, to me, the Bruins are, if they don't get this Swayman thing figured out before the season, it's very bad. We know when these guys come in late, it never works out. The guy gets hurt.
That I would be concerned about that if I was Boston, for sure.
And I'm not just saying that because he's an Anchorage, Alaska guy, and I want to see him get the bank. But, I don't know what Sweeney's doing here. And he looks like a total idiot. Calling out Chicklets, too. Like, Ryan Whitney said, hey, I got it from a reliable source. They offered him 2 years for $6.4 million. And to me, it's a slap in the face. Again, we're not talking Atlantic, but maybe if Detroit's really good, Buffalo, we see 4 or 5 teams get in from the Atlantic. I definitely think the Atlantic's the younger, more talented division at this point. But to me, of the whole entire Eastern Conference, the Rangers are the class. Yeah, the Devils could give them a run for their money. They got to stay healthy and show me, but they're still so young. It's like, I'm not that concerned. I definitely think they make the playoffs. Because they're going to get some solid goaltending. Pittsburgh fixes their power play. They're going to be in contention, but I'm with you, man. I do think maybe the thing that scares me about the Islanders is, are they going to get enough secondary scoring? They were one of the lower scoring teams last year. And then if they don't have Sorokin for any stretch of a long period of time, like 3/4 half the season, I just don't see them doing it. But I love you taking a risk there. But I think it's going to be New York. I would definitely put the Devils at 2. And then, Carolina's 3 for me. I mean, I know you got.
I think Carolina 3, Islanders 4 makes sense to me. But I think I would not be surprised if the Islanders finish 3rd.
Yeah, I mean, they would finish 3rd last year. So, I mean, I think the Capitals and them are kind of going back and forth in that 3rd spot. So the Caps could have, but they didn't end up having enough points. I mean, Flyers will definitely be better. They're going to have solid goaltending and probably just be better. So they're going to be up. I think they'll be up there. I mean, all they got to do is win 4 or 5 more games and they're in the mix. So, it's going to be tough, man. This is going to be, I think, one of the most dog-eat-dog seasons we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's how I look at it. I mean, the Central, look at what Nashville did. But if somebody told you Nashville doesn't make the playoffs, would you be shocked?
No, I wouldn't actually. I think that's a very interesting division. And I mean, I mean, Dallas looks like a juggernaut too, right? Somebody told me Dallas is the team that's going to beat Edmonton the other day. Yeah, we will do a preview on the Central Division, but kind of just as we close off here, kind of tell us what you're up to.
Yeah, so I really appreciate it, man. You can check out my channel, The Sports Beard. We're doing NHL Nightly 4 nights a week when the season starts, starting the 1st. And then also today I did my first the college hockey show at 2 p.m. Eastern. We're just talking hockey, me and the Degenerate Bostonian, Mike from my podcast, with a little bit more gambling specific. I'm just pretty much the host. Those guys are all the degenerate gamblers. I'm not a gambler. It's not legal here. It's a pain in the ass. So it's not anything I do on a regular, but I love to talk hockey. And so I just kind of am the trigger man and run the show from my thing. So we're doing that. And then eventually I'll be doing some gaming stuff during the day to do do an NHL franchise mode, some stuff like that on Twitch to try to grow the channel. Maybe some other games that aren't sports related, but we'll be doing some stuff like that. But so that's a ways down the road here. We're trying that, but yeah, and then I'll do some hockey live streams. I'll definitely be at the Frozen Four this year. That's a really good time and very inexpensive. You get to see a lot of young, talented players. You can go. I mean, I went to the award ceremony where Celebrini won the Hobie Baker. It was really cool. What a class kid. You could, if you get media credentialed, you could talk to these guys. So it's really good time, man. I've really enjoyed it. The channel consists of myself, Steve Duncan, Perlo Wisdom. Everybody knows Perlo from Edmonton, but he's soon to not be of Edmonton. He's coming to America.
Wow.
So Steve will be moving to America. His wife has got a job down in the States here. And then Rico from Barrie, my good friend, probably the best shot prop guy ever. Just such a great guy, loves hockey. He's also our French correspondent, speaks French fluently. We got to have that. And he gets to a lot of games. They're living in Barrie between the Leafs and the Sens. So we get a little in-person scouting of young guys and stuff. Great. And he's from Thunder Bay originally. So we have all of Ontario covered with him. And then the Degenerate Bostonian. And then our friend Teddy, we call him Occupancy. He was in San Jose, California. He is now live and in color in Switzerland. So when we get him, he's coming from Switzerland because his wife is from there and he now lives there. So we've had a lot of people move from our podcast. But so we're getting close to 100 episodes. We're in our second season. I have not made a single dime on it, but I love talking hockey. So it's just good. It's great to talk to great people. I get to meet guys like you and come on your podcast, which you're so great. I'm so grateful to having you on, Kev. I've wanted to come on and do something with you guys since you were the hockey podcast, which I'm sure somebody dinged you on saying you can't use that or whatever. But you guys went with Shifts and Pucks.
No, we switched the name. That's a long story. We'll get into another time. But
yeah. Well, I'd love to. If you do a live stream or anything, think of me, man. I'd love to come on. Even if my own show is going on, maybe we could do a collab. I'd love to get you and Devin and the Beardy Canuck. And I don't know all the guys. Those are the three I know for the most part. And we can joke about give me a minute, I'll be there in a second. That's a classic line from your podcast. Yeah. But I know you've been doing it a long time, man. So I appreciate it. And I hope you get my boy John Viveros on. I know because you reached out to both of us. But Hot Take Hockey's a great guy. He's really pretty much the reason I have any kind of a career in this because he was such a warm, welcoming person. And I have to say, man, that's the hockey community for the most part. People are really good people.
Yeah.
And, I just have enjoyed talking with all you. It's a great time. So thank you, man. Thanks for having me for
sure. Thanks for coming on. Of course, you can follow us Beardy Canuck 03. Devin is Gord Howe 09. Sean Beardy Canuck 03. Tyler TNOBLE. Chris SCHNEIDZ. I am KEVOLE. Shifts and Pucks on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or wherever you get your audio. Thanks everyone for watching and listening, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now. So I hit end record. Hang on. There we go.